Hello everyone, it's Steve with Aptera Owners Club. Today, Aptera did an amendment to Form 1A, and that was released today, August 6th, 2022. And it was pretty interesting, so I thought we'd kind of go over it together. All right, so as you can see, published today, August 16th, 2022. And basically, this is saying that they plan on offering more Class B common shares at a price of $10.50. I think the last round was $9.20, and then the round before that was like 8.80 or something like that. And before that, I think it was 3.80 or something. But now the new price is 10.50, and they're offering about 4 million shares, so that will be gross revenue about $41 million. So they're hoping to raise $41 million out of this, and I don't know when this is going to go active. They've submitted for it. They've done previous amendments to this where they were planning on releasing less shares, but it looks like they've now upped it to 4 million shares. And I don't know if this is going to go live soon or not. Currently, if you go to Aptera, it says our $9.20 investment round has concluded. Please stay tuned. So I don't know when they're going to change this to let people get in on $10.50. So I think it's going to happen pretty soon because they do need the money. And so I think we will see that page update and people will be able to invest at $10.50. Now, disclaimer, I'm not a financial analyst or a financial professional. This is not investment advice. This is just information and entertainment. So do not construe any of this as investment advice. You invest at your own risk. I invested myself, but that's just what I did. And I thought it was a good idea, but that doesn't mean you should do it. All right, so that's just the disclaimer. Um, all right, so this is all legal mumbo jumbo, and then we'll get through here. And so this is the interesting thing. So a maximum of 4 million shares, roughly 3.9 million shares, 4 million shares will be offered. Currently, they have 55,714,810 shares of Class A common stock. This was the stock that was given to the initial investors and to the founders of the company. And then this is the amount of Class B stock. This is the stock that we all bought through through the previous offerings. And so after they add 4 million to this, it will look like this. They'll have 55 million of Class A and 11.5 million of Class B and 10.5, and there'll be a minimum investment amount of about 1,000, which is what it was before too. And then I kind of wanted to know who owns this 55 million shares of stock, and here it is. So these are the people that, so if you add this up, this is 55,700,000 something shares. And so the biggest owner is Michael Johnson Properties at 15,249,750 shares. This is a real estate developer in Orange County, Michael Johnson Properties. So I think he's a friend of theirs or something, and he's obviously very wealthy. He invested some money, and he owns 27.38% of this class. Then Chris Anthony and Steve Fambro own 15 million shares each. I think this is a slight typo. This should be 26.92, and this is 26.92 because they are the same, and they are less than this. So it's not 29.62. This is 26.92, so a little typo there. And then Patrick Quilter Trust. Patrick Quilter is a guy, he started a company for like guitar amps and things like that, speakers. You can Google him. He has a store down near San Diego where they sell like guitar amps and stuff. And he was an early investor in this as well. So you look at this, and at $10 a share, these things are theoretically worth $150 million. So Chris and Steve, on paper, theoretically, if this is actually worth $10.50, have about $150 million. So that's not bad. Of course, this is just it's unrealized, so it depends on whether they actually go IPO, or sell to another company and experience some kind of liquidity event. Then they'll realize these gains. If the company goes bankrupt, well, it's worth nothing. So just like if you invest in this stock now, unless there's a liquidity event, such as going IPO or them being bought out by a bigger company, then your shares are essentially worthless. There's no secondary market. Like, no, you can't really sell it to anyone else. At least it's very difficult to. So if you invest in them right now, it depends on one of these liquidity events happening. Okay, so going back to this, so that's who owns. So those four people: Michael Johnson Properties, Steve Anthony, uh, I mean, Michael Johnson Properties, Chris Anthony, Steve Fambro, and Patrick Quilter Trust. They own these Class A common shares. This is everyone else currently, and this is where they hope to be at the end of this offering. We don't know. All right. So then this is implications of being an emerging growth company. So they don't have any of these reporting requirements. And they said, we intend to take advantage of all these reduced reporting requirements and exemptions. So they don't have to follow a lot of these accounting and reporting rules and auditing rules. So they're not, quote, as safe as, established companies. Then they talk about risks related to our business and industry and risks related to our securities, and they go over them one by one here. So we can kind of peruse it, okay? So we have a limited operating history upon which you can evaluate our performance and have not yet generated revenues or profits. Accordingly, our prospects must be considered in light of that and any new company encounter. So yeah, that's true. They haven't made any money. They haven't produced a production car. And so we can't evaluate their performance as a company that produces and sells actual products. We can only see how they've done at marketing and at keeping people engaged. They seem to be doing a pretty good job of that. Okay. Our auditor has issued a going concern opinion. So this sounded really ominous to me because I didn't know what going concern means. It sounded like, oh, they're concerned about things. As it turns out, going concern is an odd accounting term for a company that has the resources needed to continue operating indefinitely until it provides evidence of the contrary. So what it means is going concern is an accounting term for a company that is financially stable enough to meet its obligations and continue its business for the foreseeable future. Okay, so that's actually, this going concern is a good thing. I thought it was a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing. But the company lacks significant working capital and has only recently commenced operations. We will incur significant additional costs before significant revenue is achieved. These matters raise substantial doubt that the company's ability to continue as a going concern. So they're saying, we don't have that much money. We will have to spend way more money before we can get to production and generate money. And because of that, our ability to continue as a going concern, so continue as a financially stable company, is in substantial doubt. Okay. During the next 12 months, the company intends to fund operations received from a Regulation A offering and future campaigns, additional debt or equity financing as necessary. There are no assurances that management will be able to raise capital on terms acceptable to the company. If we're unable to find sufficient amounts of additional capital, we may be required to reduce the scope of our planned development, which would harm our business and financial outlook and operating results. The financial statements do not include any adjustments that might result from these uncertainties. So the accountant said they are a going concern right now. So right now, as they're running it, they have enough money to continue. They're not insolvent. However, a lot of things are in flux. Okay, if COVID-19 can materially impact, I think they just have to say stuff like that. The company plans to raise significantly more. I think this is pretty important to know. The company plans to raise significantly more capital and future fundraising, including offering equity at a discount to the price offered in this offering. So they are going to plan to sell shares to some people at less than the cost that they're selling it to people in this offering. So at less than $10.50 a share. This is what I figure is happening. If someone who has a large amount of money wants to invest in them, say someone says, oh, I want to invest 50 million into you guys. And they actually kind of need someone to do that. Because the chance of raising 41 million through this offering from small investors, kind of iffy. But let's say someone was going to say, I can give you guys $50 million, but I don't want to pay $10.50 a share. I want to pay less, $8 a share or something like that. Then they'll probably go for it. They'll probably go for it. And so, and then that will dilute our shares. Those of us small investors, it'll dilute our shares. And it'll make our shares less valuable. Okay, so we know that. Company operates in a capital intensive industry. Obvious, building cars takes money. You got to lease a building. It's not like starting a software company where you just need some programmers and some computers. You need like robots, you need manufacturing space, you need actual equipment, you need parts. It takes a lot of money. Terms of any loan may not be favorable to the company, obviously. Aptera operates in a highly competitive market. This is yet another typo. They called it Aperta, which obviously it's Aptera. Operates in a highly competitive market, obvious. We face significant technological and legal barriers to entry, sure. Our success is dependent on our consumers' willingness to adopt energy-efficient solar-powered vehicles, yes. Developments and improvements in alternative technologies such as hybrid, full electric vehicles, internal combustion engine, or low retail gas prices may materially and adversely affect the demand for our vehicles. Yes, all true. We face several regulatory hurdles. Yes. These are highly regulated and subject to changes. Yes. Demand is highly volatile. Yes. Although we know now that demand is really high for vehicles. Now is kind of the perfect time for Aptera to deliver a vehicle, like there's supply chain issues. People can't buy cars even if they want to. People are jacking up their prices for their cars. Gas prices are really high. So, I mean, if Aptera could deliver a car right now for $26,000, I think it would sell like hotcakes. Unfortunately, they're not ready yet. And we don't know what the outlook will be at the time that they actually deliver a vehicle. Right now would be perfect. In a year from now, who knows? We may be affected by uncertainty over government purchase incentives. True. And we know that just today, Biden signed the Inflation Reduction Act, and that has no purchase incentives for Aptera. They were hoping to get that. This did not happen. All right. It could be subject to private liability claims. Limited intellectual protection may cause us to lose our competitive advantage. We have filed for 5 patents. So this is outdated language. They have filed for 9 patents, actually. So this is kind of outdated. Our failure to maintain the right to use certain intellectual property may affect our business. Okay, this is all kind of self-explanatory. We may not have enough insurance. Again, they can't spell Aptera correctly. So I hope someone's watching this from Aptera and fixes these typos. It's a little embarrassing. Depends on a small management team and may need to hire more people to be successful. Yes. Company relies on outside parties. That's like everyone. As a growing company, we have to develop reliable accounting resources. Okay, right. All right, so risk related to our securities. The offering price of our securities has been arbitrarily determined. Yes, there's no like market to determine the actual price. They've just kind of done some internal analysis and decided $10.50 makes sense. At $10.50, they're valuing the company right now at over $500 million, which seems like a low thing based on the price of EV stocks about a year ago, but right now might be a little optimistic. Back when Rivian was selling for $80 billion, you're like, well, maybe Aptera is worth $500 million. I don't know if that's the case anymore. But the securities market is tough right now. We have broad discretion in the use of proceeds. That means they can use the money that you invest in them however they like. There is no minimum amount as a set condition of closing this offering. That means that they haven't set like we have to raise at least $10 million. And then we'll take your money. No, if you're the only person and you give them $1,000 and you're the only person in the whole world that gives them $1,000, they're taking your $1,000, and that may not be enough money to continue their operations. There's no current market for security, so just like we said, you can't resell any shares that you get. They have to experience a liquidity event, which is being bought out by a bigger company or going IPO. If one of those two things doesn't happen, your stock is worthless. It's just paper. It's not worth anything. You need to keep track of your own records, obviously. Our officers control the company. We have no independent directors. That means basically Chris Anthony and Steve Fambro control the company. They can run the company as they like. There's no board of directors that tells them what to do. And so we are trusting them to make the right decisions with basically the money you invest. If you don't trust them, you probably should not invest in this. Our executive officers and directors may have potential conflict of interest arising from outside business activities. I think they all have to say stuff like that. They have broad discretion how they use it. We know that. They're not paying in dividends, so you're not going to get dividends. The company intends to amend its certificate of portion, which would create a series of preferred stock with rights superior to the common stock offered in this offering, including liquidation preference. Okay, so this preferred stock is the stock that they're selling to the accredited investors. So accredited investors, remember those are the people that have I think make over $250,000 a year and have over $1 million in assets outside of their primary residence. So that those preferred stocks, so if you invest in those, if you get the preferred stock, what happens is, let's say they have to close down shop and they liquidate their assets. Well, if they liquidate their assets, those people with preferred stock would get some money back before the common stock people get their money back. All right, so subscription agreements, and this is all not too interesting. Okay, the company's board of investors may require stockholders to participate in future events. So they're saying that if they decide to sell their assets, you have to sell your stock to them. Like if they decide to get bought out by a company, you can't say, no, I don't want to get bought out. No, you have to follow along. Then it talks about dilution, which that just means that if as they sell more stock, everyone's stock gets worth a little less. So we won't go into that. Okay, then let's skip down to this company's business. Okay, we know that. We know that it's a private automotive company based in Carlsbad. This is talking about when they bought out Andromeda Interfaces, which we knew about. These are the advantages that they think that they have. And what their advantages are is they feel like because they're not using steel stamping but using composite material and optimizing it with generative part design, they think that they'll have lower manufacturing costs, which with inexpensive and simple tooling, so they don't need like that mega press that Tesla has. They'll have fewer robots, mainly those AGVs, fewer people, no welding, rapid and inexpensive scaling with those micro factories, reduced weights, part weights and counts, so less heavy parts means that people can position the parts without the need for these heavy robots to help them position the parts together. So less labor and less space. So they're really hoping that their manufacturing process is going to be way cheaper than the traditional. And I think that's true. In addition, we'll be using efficient powertrains where motors are integrated inside our wheels, designed to be aerodynamic lightweight. These in-wheel motors are easier to install and service. So these are the Alafe motors that they're talking about. Solar power will be integral to our platform. Then they're following Tesla's lead for a lot of this thing, direct consumer sales, online promotion, regional pre-delivery to warehouses. They're going to roll out to Southern California first with major metro areas soon afterward, and mobile service house calls. So that's their that they're going to follow Tesla's service model as well. Then there's talking a little bit about the vehicle, which we all know about. And then they're talking about their suppliers. So we know about their Cherry Automotive. So they are going to get some technical services from them and a licensing agreement for intellectual property. So they're paying them $2 million to license some technology from them. We still don't know what that technology is. Yeah, we don't know if it's their self-driving, safety pilot, their internals. I don't think it's their suspension. That doesn't make sense. It's not their motor technology. Maybe it's their charging. I doubt it's their battery technology. We just don't know. But they're licensing some intellectual property from Chery. And then they have a licensing agreement with Alafe. They're paying them a licensing fee of $40 per motor. It goes into effect after they buy 20,000 motors, which is enough for 10,000 vehicles. And in addition, the company has a agreement with Red Viking for their AGVs and Yazaki for their internal wiring. They're talking about the environmental impact, which is good. They believe the market size is 600,000 units per year. That's pretty optimistic. I think if they sell 20,000 a year, they'll be doing great. And 20,000 a year is more than they can produce initially anyway. So if they produce 20,000 a year and can consistently sell 20,000 a year, I think they'll be very profitable and doing well. Currently, they have 89 full-time employees and 14 part-time employees. They don't have any pension, annuity, profit sharing. I'm sure they have stock options because almost all startups, that's how they attract talent. Generally, the young people that join these startups don't really care about pensions and annuities. And there's no profit to share anyway at this point. Then they're talking about the properties. So January 2021, this is their original office. That's the one that I visited when I went to visit them. And then they leased these two bigger buildings more recently. These are their two manufacturing plants. And look, they put down 2.5 million and 1 million as security deposits for these things. So, I mean, real estate around San Diego is pretty expensive. So these are their operating expenses. So they had a $7 million increase in general selling and administrative expenses and an $8 million increase in research and development expenses. So their operating expenses have gone up significantly in 2021 over 2020. And we know they've hired more people in 2022, so it's going to be even higher in 2022. So their cash burn rate, I'm sure, is even higher now. And then that's before they've even started trying to produce vehicles. So their cash burn is going to be fairly significant. So this is the important number. They have $19 million cash on hand. And since 2021, so at this time they had 19 million and they raised an additional 15 million. Okay. So that means that they theoretically, so I don't know how much of this they've spent since December 2021, but at some point they had almost $34 million in cash, which is pretty good. Okay. So our focus in 2022 is completing a production intent vehicle design and validation by the end of the year. We will be engaging many two partners to supply validated production parts in 2022 and 2023. We will engage in validation and durability testing to ensure the reliability of production intent design. So see, after they have this production intent vehicle by the end of the year, they're going to have to do a lot of validation and durability testing. Along with these activities, we will continue to build our internal team and acquire facilities for production trials, vehicles, and parts testing. Our marketing team will be actively engaging. Okay, so I think this timeline is they make a production intent vehicle by the end of the year. They start validating in early 2023. And we don't know how long this validation and durability testing takes. We have no idea. They don't say. My guess is several months. And then they're going to build and then they'll also be testing their production trials and stuff. I think that's going to take months. So maybe they don't really start delivering until like mid 2023, the first Paradigm editions. I'm not sure. Maybe they plan on hand building some and delivering some. But as we can see, you'll see a timeline later on, right here at the bottom of this thing, and you'll see that that's like an old timeline. That's totally different than this timeline. And then it says, as a result of the above, the company will experience increased spending across the organization, including general selling and administrative, as well as research and development expenses. So they're saying their cash burn is going to go up, which is true. All right, COVID-19. All right, so here, see, this is our 12-month plan. This is old. This is their old plan. And you can see this was their plan back in 2021. They didn't amend it for this thing. I think this is copied and pasted from their previous annual report in 2021, in like early 2021. So they were planning on building their betas by the end of last year, by fall of 2021. So that didn't happen. And see, they were planning on building their first gamma unit in Q4 of 2021. It's Q3 of 2022, and they have started building their first gamma unit. So they're at least 3 quarters behind schedule of this schedule. Then start building our production test building by Q4 of 2022. Continue validation. So they're thinking that validation is going to take about 3 months because they're thinking they're going to finish this thing in 1 quarter. So I think they're hoping they're still on schedule for that. And now, instead of having first Delta vehicles by the end of 2021, they're hoping to have a Delta vehicle by the end of 2022. I think that's a tight timeline. And then deliver to a customer by the end of the year. And by end of year, they meant 2021. And then they were going to build out the facilities and ramp up production in 2022. As we know, that didn't happen. So now I think we can just delay all of this by 3 quarters to a year. And so that would mean build out facilities and ramp up production in 2023, which would actually be pretty good if they did that. All right, so this is their executive officer. So we know Chris Anthony, Steve Fambro, Janie Burlingame. She's their CFO, Sarah Hardwick, CMO. And then these are the directors, and we know them. Brian Snow and Doug Louie. Remember, these are the two venture capital guys that joined fairly recently this year. Pretty young team, actually. All in their 40s, some in their early 50s. All right, this is interesting. If you want to know how much they got paid, here's how much they got paid. Steve Anthony, 211,000. Steve Fambro, 180,000. And Janie's Burlingame, 181,000. Now they got a bunch of stock options on top of that, which are worth either a lot of money or worth no money, depending on how the company does. So you can make your own judgments about whether you think this is fair compensation or not. This is the thing about, so Chris Anthony and Steve Fambro have these stock that are theoretically worth 150 million at $10 a share. And then let's see here. Okay, yeah. So let's take a look at their balance sheet. I think if you want to look at this talks a lot about their safe agreements and things like that. I'm not too interested in that. What I really want to know is how much money are they burning, and how much money do they have? Now they said they have $20 million in cash at the end of 2021, and they raised another 14 million. So let's say that they have 34 million. And then if you look here, they have zero revenue, of course, because they're not selling anything. And operating expenses, 19 million. So in 2021, their operating expenses was 19 million, and they had 19 million. So they had about a year's worth of cash reserves. Now their total operating expenses are going to be much higher this year. They've hired more people, they leased more buildings this year. So this is going to go up. And then this is before they start trying to build out their production facility. I think that's going to cost a ton of money to build out their manufacturing facility. So their cash burn this year is going to be significant. And I think, let's see here, there was something I wanted to point out here. Oh yeah, this is how much stock options they got. So they got Anthony and Fambro got 500,000 shares of stock B options last year, so theoretically worth 5 million each. And then Janie's Burlingame got 1.2 million, so theoretically worth $12 million. There was a thing talking about how much money they needed. I think it was in here. Okay, here we go, right here. All right, so they were talking about They had 19 million at the end of 2021, and they raised another 15 million since then. At the time of this thing, they said right here, this is the important thing. We anticipate we will need at least $50 million in addition. So in addition to this and this, they need another 50 million. So this, they're planning to raise 40 million from this. They need to they need to completely have this thing totally bought out and get another 10 million from somewhere else, maybe from those preferred investors. But they need $50 million at least, because if you look at this balance sheet, they burned through 20 million last year. They're going to burn through way more this year. And they're going to need at least $50 million to make it into production. If they don't get $50 million, they're going to have a hard time making it to production because they'll just run out of cash. And that's the problem these days. Like, you can have a great idea, a great product, good team, you're doing everything right, and you just run out of money because people just don't have the money, and they don't have the risk tolerance to invest in a startup company like this. So that's why I was saying before, maybe that whole Tesla plug thing was a way to get on Elon Musk's radar, because Elon Musk could easily give him $50 million if he wanted to. That's like a drop in the bucket. I heard he's like trying to buy Manchester United now for like 5 billion. So 50 million is nothing. They need to find some big investors like venture capital firms or something to put in significant amounts of cash to infuse into them. Because they're going to, I think that's, personally, this is just my opinion, I think that that's the biggest concern with Aptera right now. The product is great. The demand for their product is great. I think if they ever build the thing, it'll sell very well. And I think it's a great vehicle. But will they find the capital to make it to production? That's the biggest question. Can they find $50 million from someone? They have to. If they don't find $50 million, we are probably not getting our cars. And those of us who invested probably aren't getting any money out of it. But if they do get the 50 million and they do deliver a car, I think we're all going to be very happy. The investors are going to make a lot of money, and we're all going to be driving really cool cars. Okay, so that's kind of the highlights of this thing. There's a lot more stuff in here. There was all these extra things going through the details of the Cherry agreement and stuff. I perused that. There was nothing new. It was the same thing. So nothing else. That was kind of the highlights of this report. I will link the SEC page in the description below. So if you want to check it out for yourself, please do so. If some of you guys are financial experts and I said something wrong in here, please put in the comments. Anything else you find interesting, put in the comments below. Thanks for watching, guys. Again, as always, thanks to our sponsoring members, and have a great day, everyone.